Homeland, a Homeland Special Moscow, Program 103 Stereo.
You have seen the tourist's Moscow, the beauty of this city and its rich history. You have seen Moscow in the news, with its shortages and its long lines. Today, you will see my Moscow, a volatile city in confusion. I am Alexander Andreev, a documentary filmmaker. I was born here, and I have lived here all of my life. Moscow is my home, and I love it.
And I am Stanley Odell from the United States. Together with Alexander and our team, we are here in Moscow to speak with citizens of the capital of the Soviet Union. For it is here we find the focal point of tension in this great nation. We will question the political and economic unrest, the deteriorating work ethic, the anger and hopes of the people, their fears, and the very real and growing danger here.
Moscow, the political and economic center of my country of 283 million people. It is also the capital of Russia with over 147 million. Moscow's history begins over 800 years ago, first as a village, then trading center on the meeting point of the Moscow and Neglynne rivers. Through generations of princes and tsars, Moscow grew in power and influence as the heartland of Russian culture and authority. There is nothing above Moscow except the Kremlin, an old Russian proverb said, and nothing above the Kremlin except heaven.
Moscow remains today in the eye of heaven as the world closely watches the events changing here so rapidly. What is happening here? What are some key issues to try to understand, and how may the world be affected by these ominous events? We are at the headquarters of the internationally known Moscow News, and above us are the offices of its editor-in-chief, Igor Yakovlev.
Mr. Yakovlev has been a journalist for 35 years. He reminds me of what we call a child of the 20th Party Congress, where Stalin was first officially denounced. Here, the delegates had a small taste of the freedom they would never forget.
The birth of an absolutely new country is underway. We have to build a completely new society, which doesn't have anything to do with the one we had before. I have actually outlined for you the three major directions of the social thought in the Soviet Union nowadays. A certain part of the society would like to return to patriarchal Russia. Another part would like to return to Stalin's way of life in the totalitarian society. And the third part of people consider that we should only go forward. And I include myself in this third group.
In the changes that are occurring today, what are the possibilities for the Communist Party?
I think that there are no possibilities at all. Until the 28th Party Congress, a delegate of which I was, I believed in the self-revival of the party. But at the 28th Congress, I saw this well-formed layer of the party bureaucracy which cuts it off from any fresh ideas. Today, I very much doubt if the party will find enough strength for self-revival, because this upper layer of the party bureaucracy won't let new ideas grow up.
Is this then a dangerous time for the Soviet Union?
Extremely.
How dangerous?
It is dangerous because any uncontrolled situation is unpredictable. On the eve of the February Revolution of 1917, no one could tell even a few hours before that it would happen. If I were trying to depict my people today graphically, I would draw a figure rushing towards a fresh source with huge weights on his feet. And this is the weight of Stalinism.
What is this Stalinism, and how is the typical Russian affected by it? I have asked this question and am always told there is no typical Russian. Yet to understand today's events, we might learn something of the history of these people. Lieutenant General Dmitry Volkogonov is a soldier, a doctor of history and philosophy, and an author.
My father was executed in 1937 and my mother died in exile. So you see a paradox here. The state eliminated my parents, but it helped their son become a real man. You will find the same paradox in most of our society. When I was writing on Stalin, I thought of our Russian and Soviet people as if they were, in a sense, created for the purpose of living through numerous tragedies. It is hard to find in history another nation and people who have gone through so many ordeals and been the victim that Russia and the Soviet people have. It is difficult for you to understand because for 200 years you've been developing in an absolutely different way, and the founders of your country have put in the phrases of your constitution the most important thing, the worship of freedom, and we never had it. For many generations, people were brought up with the idea that the person who is in Moscow, in the Kremlin, at the very top, had an indivisible power, was a dictator, and they had to obey him. I would call the system bureaucratic absolutism. I may be the first to use this term. When bureaucracy is in command of absolutely everything. So this bureaucratic absolutism and Stalin have formed a new type of human being. I would say that this new type of person has the characteristics of indifference, expectancy of orders, and expectance that someone else will do something instead of him. The absence of initiative. People are not to blame here. They were formed so by the system.
Our long history of monarchy and communism, warfare and oppression have left us a people with little experience in self-government and no experience in managing our own economy. Our sense of responsibility and accountability have been taken from us or beaten down within us. We have come to accept a beggar-like daily life. It is hard on our souls to have to search for bread, to feel we are not worthy of the basic dignities of a human being. We have difficult problems and seemingly no way to solve them.
Speaking about our major problems, I see two of them. No new economic or political structures have been formed yet. And from here we have the crisis of our administration, because there is no administration. And the second problem is the level of conscience in a society which has been brought up for 70 years under a totalitarian regime. It's not ready to approve the new reforms which Gorbachev started his way with. And the main obstacle to perestroika is not Ligachev or any of the other conservatives. but the level of the social conscience of the country.
Below Mr. Yakovlev's office, we can find two of our city's most popular gathering places, the new McDonald's and the billboards of the Moscow News. In my opinion, serious people would not waste time in either place, and I asked Mr. Yakovlev what he thought about this.
My attitude is two-sided. On one hand, the noise from under the window is irritating to me, but probably the crowds at McDonald's and here are from the same nest, the nest of hunger. On one hand, at McDonald's, it is hunger for a hamburger they have never seen and a glass of Coke they have never drank. And here, under our windows, is a crowd of a spiritual hunger.
I do not even know whether our people have hope at all. For 70 years we've been living in such poverty. Personally, I had a higher education, but I live poorly. My salary is just 120 rubles, and what can you do with that? It seems like our country is rich, and we know how to work, and we know how to produce, and we have enough meat and butter, but where it has all gone, I simply do not know.
You can't buy anything now, and you don't have enough money for everything, especially now. I've been to the store and I could not even buy shampoo because of a line for 3 hours. Lines and crowds of people are all around.
Then what's your hope for the future in relation to your family and our country?
I don't know. I have no hope for anything.
How can you live without hope?
Well, so it is.
We have many problems. We are a young couple, and that's why we encounter a lot of difficulties. The main problem is housing.
During the first 2 or 3 years, we do not hope for a bettering of the situation. That's why our plans are not to have any children yet.
There's a lot of frustration, there's a lot of misunderstanding, there's a lot of bitter struggle. I would say that several layers are forming in the society, and what personally I'm afraid of is that under the new economic trends, under the new changes in economic field, these layers, these groups of people are falling apart, and this could lead to certain clashes. As a child, I would try to steal coins from this same fountain, and I wondered about what I would do when I grew up. What would the future hold for me? Now, 30 years later, I am here again asking the same questions as so many of my countrymen. What does our future hold?
The people I have spoken with echo this question of Alexander's and speak ever more openly of clashes. In my country, we read of a possible military coup here. This is a concern we will take to the Kremlin and a very powerful man.
The Kremlin, the seat of power for the Soviet Union, and long the focal point of world communism. Here we find the office of a man holding my country's highest military rank, Marshal of the Soviet Union, Sergei Akhrameyev.
Marshal Akhrameyev is the personal military advisor of Mr. Gorbachev.
I'm not hiding anything. I am a communist. And I've been a communist for nearly 50 years now. I've been living and I will die as a communist. It is from this position that I look at the events happening today.
Certain media organizations in our country are actively discussing the rumor of a possible coup by the military. What do you think about this?
Here I can say straightforwardly that these rumors are being spread by the opponents of perestroika, opponents of our way of life. Those who want to paint our armed forces black in the eyes of the Soviet people. I exclude any possibility of a coup on the part of our military forces, and I exclude any other anti-constitutional actions on their side.
I don't see any opportunity for a conservative coup. Other people think far differently and imagine an opportunity for a military coup. I don't believe in this also. It's not in the traditions of the Russian army. The army has already undergone democratization, and the generals who are now threatening us with arms are not the army, and the army is not the generals. But there is a third and more dangerous model remaining which you cannot anticipate. It concerns the people who are tired of waiting, who are hungry. Thus we have the pattern of a possible revolt by the people, and this pattern cannot be foretold.
The growing fear of a people's revolt brings us to this building on Dzerzhinsky Square. It is a building I first saw on a rainy night over 4 years ago. It is the central office of the Committee for State Security, the KGB. Its founder, Felix Dzerzhinsky, stands looking away from the rooms where he once lived over 70 years ago.
Like Stanley, I feel strange entering this building and passing through these meeting rooms that have witnessed so much. I feel like a driver who is traveling at a legal speed, but whose fears cause him to slow down when he sees a policeman. My grandfather died in a concentration camp, but neither my father or I blame the KGB. We know only Stalin is to blame.
As part of our visit, we were shown to a room and allowed to examine espionage items reportedly captured from American agents. Though our hosts were polite and friendly, they would not permit themselves to be filmed.
Our most important question was directed to Mr. Vitaly Ponomarev, the Deputy Director and Chief of Staff of the KGB.
Is there another alternative for this country? Could there be a revolt?
No, I exclude this possibility. In our country we have a great force, and this is the overwhelming majority of our people who would not undertake a revolt, because our people, in their nature, being Russian, and actually all Soviet people, are good-willed. And during your stay here, you will probably see the proofs that our people are very friendly, very quiet, very reasonable.
Yes, we are very friendly, quiet, reasonable, and patient people, whose patience has just about run out. We are a people used to following strong leadership, who see around us now only a paralysis of power. We are becoming hungry. There is food rationing in Leningrad for the first time since the war. And we are angry with the government and economic system that have failed us. This is a very dangerous and explosive time. We are aware of the danger, but our reactions are emotional, and this may prove disastrous. Yet civil war must not be an alternative.
You can feel the tension here, but where will it be released? In a nation of this mood, with a huge army standing ready to protect the motherland, and people pointing the finger of blame anywhere but at themselves, what can be done? What must be done? It is not only casual interest that brings these questions to our minds. We have been told that this country, which controls 1/6 of the Earth's surface, cannot die alone, that its convulsions will cause the world to shudder. And so we ask, what are the options for political and economic change? What is the face of new Soviet leadership? And what is the part to be played by the people themselves?
Sergei Stankevich is Moscow's newly elected vice mayor and represents an emerging type of Soviet leader, very involved with his community. He's 36 years old and a political scientist with a PhD in study of the US Congress. He has both joined and quit the Communist Party in the past 3 years.
The principal question for us is, either to continue this historic, giant, tragic social experiment we started in 1917, or to return to the mainstream of world civilization. So it is the main choice, main dilemma for us. And I hope that we can decide to stop this experiment. I mean, 1987, quite many young men and women entered the Communist Party in order to support Mr. Gorbachev's reform efforts, because we realize that it is serious, that it can open new opportunities, and we should use this historic chance and support this movement. But unfortunately, this wave was too short. Very soon we realized that the Communist Party is about to exhaust its reform potential. We decided that now is the time to leave Communist Party, because this Communist Party is now main obstacle for further reform efforts. We see within this Communist Party a real threat to perestroika, to our profound changes within the society. They prefer to stop the process on the stage of modernization, only modernization of this regime, not touching the very basics of our society, economic, ideological and political basics. But we need not modernization but transformation, real deep transformation of this regime. We should insist on complete return to common sense, to mainstream of world civilization. For more than 7 decades, this party was a leading force in our society. You can see the results.
The Soviet Union has known only communist leadership, and we can see the results. Alexander believes in the ideals of the party and tells me they should be pursued, even if they may be impossible to achieve. Many others in this city hold these convictions even more firmly.
I am an orthodox Marxist-Leninist, which means that I am against rejection of the essence of Marxist-Leninist theory.
Professor Alexei Sergeyev is one who sees communism as the future for the Soviet Union. He is chairman of the Political Economics Department of the Higher School of Trade Union Movement. He is of both Russian and Polish descent, and though trained in economics, he says that if you love this country, today you must become involved with politics. Some of the people we have been interviewing seem to think that the Communist Party has had 72 years in this country, and it has failed. And now it's time for the party to be dismissed entirely, completely. How do you feel about this?
I completely disagree with this. And I would like to stress that it's a lie when they say that during 73 years of Soviet power, the Communist Party didn't give anything to the people. And you might excuse me, but we have some facts in our history which we cannot omit. Didn't we send the first man into space? Didn't we have the first space satellite? This was all ours. I would like to add here that it's quite possible that in some time, some political force other than the Communist Party will be able to win the trust of the majority of the people and become a ruling party in the Soviet Union. But today we don't have such a force. Today the only political force which can provide movement towards stability, toward the way out from this crisis, from this deadlock situation which our country is now in, is only the Communist Party.
You cannot reject that through these years of Soviet power we became more angry, more envious, and as a nation we became worse in our soul.
You cannot paint all the 73 years of Soviet power with one color. The Russian people have such a characteristic feature that they are collectivists by nature. In Russia, throughout many centuries, we had community order. And the roots of this community, the roots of collectivism, penetrated deep into social consciousness, into psychology, into everyday life. And communist ideology somehow suited those specific national features of the Russian people, which have been formed through these many centuries.
What does the Soviet Union need right now?
Order, discipline, and the belief of people in the fact that everything will come to a happy end.
And can the Communist Party provide the leadership to make these changes happen?
If the Communist Party renovates itself, if it becomes tens and 100 times closer to the people than it is now, then it will be able to do this.
Can the Communist Party become 100 times closer to our people? This man doesn't think so. 6 years ago, Nikolai Travkin worked as a Mason. Today he is a member of the Russian Soviet, the Supreme Soviet, and is the chairman of the Democratic Party of Russia. He well represents our changing political environment.
Now we have the attempts of democratic forces underway to turn the development of the society toward civilization in order to join the whole civilized world. On the side of conservative forces, it's to prevent this and to turn the country back instead. This is the moment of struggle.
God forbid your reforms don't work out. Then your defeat, your failure, might be too dear a price for our people to pay. This is why I am a little bit frightened.
We perfectly understand that. But eventually, it's not just the last attempt for a separate group of politicians who are trusted by the people and thus came to power. It's the last attempt for the whole 300 million nation. If we ourselves fail this time, then degradation will surely take every one of us. There won't be any second attempts. There won't be any more perestroika. Yes, this is fearful, but there is no other way out. Since my childhood, I had an image of Uncle Lenin as a very kind man who would share his last piece of bread with a child. When we start to look into the secret documents today concerning the shooting of 15,000 clergymen in order to confiscate their treasures, it makes us see what moral stone has been placed in the foundation of this new state. They have been eliminating common human values like do not kill, respect your father and mother, that the whole world was guided by. What do you think? Will the Communist Party preserve its position in the society? Suppose the Nazis at the Nuremberg trials had promised to reorganize and change their party. Would the world forgive them?
What is your strongest emotion when you think of the Communist Party?
The feeling of resentment that I have been in the party for 20 years being foolish, and that many millions of other honest people have not gained their sight yet. So I feel sorry for both myself and for them.
What does your party offer that the Communist Party doesn't?
First of all, to turn the whole economic potential toward the human being. This is what the Communist Party doesn't propose. Within 2 or 3 years, we will solve our foodstuffs problem, which is our most important one. I'm sure that we don't need generations again for considerable bettering of our life. That in just 10 years, we will be representing a quite civilized country with decent enough living standards.
I respect the sincerity of the leaders we have spoken with, but with some of them I hear an old song, one we have all heard before. that someone who knows the way will come and take care of us. May we be saved from the tempting promise of order at any price. Our new leaders must provide honesty and action if we are to overcome the dangerous lack of confidence we have in them today. They must tell us what they are going to do, then do it. But most importantly, they must make very clear what is expected of us.
Now we have such an impression that no matter what party is born, no matter what slogans it has, it's all too shaky and will hardly be brought into life. Our attitude is one of extreme distrust for all of them.
It seems to me that nothing will be better in our country. I don't have many optimistic thoughts. For many years in a row, the same thing happens, and I don't see any major changes happening now. The only thing you see is that there at the top, one leader is changing another.
The biggest problem is for the words of our leaders to be brought really into life. This is the most important thing. We don't see it, none of us, and we are expecting it.
You see, now it's time to be absolutely sincere with our people, to explain them the situation in full, with no illusions. The situation is very bad. There is some way out, but rather painful. We are ready to share all the burden with you. So if you trust us, we can take the risk and the responsibility for political leadership. How it can be shown? Starting with streets, for example. If they are improved, and it can be done quite quickly, it cannot be unnoticeable. For many months they were spoiled. And now everybody who is driver, who each morning tried to cross the city, he sees the changes around him. So even if we make some mistakes, they will always remember that this is guys who repaired our roads. Our most serious concern is economy, of course. For decades, our people were victims of propaganda, discouraging entrepreneurship, discouraging market values. How to change mentality now? How to convince people that they have to pay for these decades of horror dream. If we really would like to have efficient economy, we have to pay a real social price for this. We have to go through unemployment, hyperinflation, a lot of bankruptcies, and so on and so on. It's a very difficult task.
Mr. Stankiewicz does not promise magic solutions. Indeed, he speaks of far worse times ahead. But if this is in fact the truth, then understanding the problems can be the beginning of finding answers. He also is not afraid to address the issue of personal accountability.
People understand democracy as new opportunities to demand something from the state. Normal Soviet citizen now think, well, we voted for you, so give us these and these and these. Free housing, high standard medical services, educational opportunities, and so on and so on. So state should take these new burdens. If you cannot give us all these and other things, why to vote for you? Why to have democracy at all? So at the same time, part of our people have alternative mentality, And our main hope is connected with this part of our people, its creative part. They think and they say us, we voted for you, so give us opportunities, give us enough freedom to act, and all the rest we shall do ourselves. Don't interfere.
I don't know how many millions of times I have heard the words of personal responsibility, every individual being the center of their own happiness. And I don't know why, but when I hear this man, I believe him. Are there others who do?
This privately owned co-op restaurant has made its principal owner a multi-millionaire. He too is a product of the Soviet system, but Mr. Fyodorov is not typical. He is the realization of Stankevich's description of a person asking only for an opportunity without interference.
How come the socialist system didn't spoil you?
I am the result of the same system, and I am spoiled by it exactly the same way. I just felt a taste of free enterprise 4 years ago, and I cannot refuse it now. Sometimes they ask me, what if something happens and they try to take it away from you? When I was working in the state enterprise, it didn't make any difference to me. I had been working as a manager of a major tourist restaurant. I had 500 people I was in the command of, and I didn't care at all. My salary was 200 rubles. I had been stealing as much as I considered necessary, and I didn't care about the enterprise itself. Today I spend about 15 hours a day here, and if they come to take it away, I'll stand in the door with a submachine gun and be shooting it off as long as I can, because this is mine.
We have a huge problem in our country with the work ethic of our people. We are used to receiving, not earning. Has Fedorov had problems with this?
During 4 years, 110 people who used to serve here were fired.
Why?
They wanted to steal, not to work.
It's horrible. It's horrible. People just don't like working. They like sitting in the office, they like getting money for doing nothing. And actually, which is improbable to imagine, they are satisfied with the salary 120 rubles if they don't do anything.
Rather than
doing anything and getting 1,000.
Nikolai Glushkov is Deputy General Director of the Logovos Soviet-Italian joint auto sales venture. He was a physicist, now he sells cars.
Glushkov is paid far less at his new job, but he says though he works longer hours, he is challenged by the growing sense of responsibility he feels.
So people are satisfied with where they are.
Yeah, sure.
How can that change?
It takes time. It's just the changing of the, of the mentality of the generation. I think that all this genocide that was created in our country, it just smashed away all the brains out of the brain part of the people. And this long-term 70 years of long run, when people just have to do just one thing that they're told, only one thing, nothing else. And it will take 150 years just to change this attitude. I don't think that it will happen in 20 years. I don't believe in that.
But you're going to try.
But we're trying. That's what we are doing at the moment.
I've been doing all this with my own hands. I've invested my own money. I invested my brain. I've been crawling around this place on my knees. I went through all the circles of hell to build this place. I've been the first man in the country who has done all this. And I cannot simply just give it up now. And now I want to develop. And this is mine. This is a part of me. It's my business. It's my life.
I think that main strength of Russian people is a very specific understanding of the world. They can work very hard, they can believe in future, and they can make many sacrifices for this future, but at the same time, even in period of hardships, of terror, of violence or so, they can keep and preserve human values.
If you look out that window right now, You'll see some people who perhaps inside are a bit angry. If you were to look out that window 5 years from now, what would you want to see?
I would like to see much more smiles on Moscow streets. And I would like to measure my political success by quantity of smiling Muscovites on the streets.
Where will these smiles come from? No one can put a smile on my face but me. Our feelings must be changed towards other people, our nation, the world, but first towards ourselves. If we are not to live as we have any longer, then we must take the fearful path forward and never consider turning back.
The path toward democracy is a difficult one, for democracy must be patiently built, not found. It places the rights of the individual at its foundation, and this requires that each person be strong enough to take responsibility for his government. We have observed some signs of the revival of individual spirit. Are there others? Today is the day of very special celebration of the Feast of the Holy Mother of Kazan. We have come to the Holy Epiphany Patriarchal Cathedral of Moscow. This city alone has seen 30 new churches open in the past 2 years, of the 4,000 opened nationwide. Father Matthew Stadanuk is the dean of this church.
We have many more people than previous years. For example, the baptismal of children, we have maybe three times more than before.
Do you believe that someday there will be a normal time in our country and we'll be finally living in a really human way?
Yes, I believe, deeply believe that this time is going now and will happen very soon. It's happen as soon as we all understand that we are brothers, that we should respect each other, to work very honestly, to respect law, to respect church, and take care of our children, to give them right and good example. Its time will come soon, I believe so.
The most important thing the world should know and understand is the fact that the things happening in the Soviet Union are for the sake of all mankind. Because any island in the sea of humanity where an anti-human system is existing is dangerous for the whole of mankind.
I think most of all we need in our society respect for a different person's opinion, respect of one party toward another party, patience. Sometimes I even look at myself. I understand many things in my mind, but my heart and my feelings go against what I see. My feelings keep sticking to the old way, but my heart should now be led by a sober mind.
It is too difficult to foretell something, but life is still beautiful no matter what, and we always believe in the better things, just like the song says, tomorrow will be a better day.
I think that people should feel that they can change their life themselves by their own arms. They can create the micro world for their purposes, for their interests, and it is the most important thing I would like to give them: opportunity to create their life themselves.
More and more I look around, I see more confident people who make their stands, whether these are political stands or economic stands or whatever, and this gives hope. What we need is a new generation of confident people. As soon as we get this generation, as soon as we get those people, you might be sure for the future of the country itself.
We have a right to expect a bright future, a right to a civilized life with dignity. Why not? We can learn to develop self-values through earning our way, through being rewarded for what each of us can produce. We can learn to govern ourselves and ask of our elected leaders only that they lead, not control or provide for us.
There is anger here, but there is strength. There is danger and realistic hope. These people have faced severe adversity before and survived. Yet they face today another battle, and this time against a most elusive enemy, the fear within themselves. It will be a battle against hopelessness, despair, and against those who would lead them backward to ruin. Our work here has led us to the center of an epic struggle of people against their fears. It is a struggle we all share. Perhaps humanity's greatest potential lies in the ability of its people to help one another. Perhaps it is time for us to realize our potential.